everybody. So great to see you all. We're letting some people come in here. Give them a second. Fantastic. Well, welcome to our second session of Congress 101 Bootcamp. In case you missed last week's session, which was really about assessing whether or not a policy strategy was right for your company, we'll put that link in the chat here shortly so you can get access to the recording if need be. Just a brief introduction. Hi, everybody. I'm Anna Stephanie, Executive Director of famtech.org. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time, we're a group of over 300 members building solutions across the care economy. I'm really excited to welcome Adriianna Lagorio today, Senior Policy Advisor at AM Lagorio Consulting. Adriianna has been a wonderful champion of famtech and has just really taken the time to share her experience and knowledge with us today. I'm just going to give a little shout out to a couple events that we have upcoming. Why we have you here. Our next event in February, we'll have the last edition of the Congress 101 Bootcamp on January 22nd, so keep your eyes out for that. And then in February, we'll be joined by Dr. Carolyn Emmer de Albuquerque Green. She is a senior researcher with Oxford University Center for AI Ethics, where they're focusing on caregiving. And we're really starting to see an emergence of the role of ethics, AI, caregiving, and potentially policy here coming up as a key theme for 2026. So keep a pulse on that one. And then for those of you who will be going to Transform in March, we'll be there in person and we'll be hosting a side event for FamTech members. All right. Today I'm so excited. We have not only Adriianna sharing how to speak, advocate, and influence with members of Congress, but we actually have a former state representative, Jamie Belsito, joining us later in the call today. And Jamie's also running for Congress currently. She just launched her campaign, and we'll learn more about her focus on maternal mental health, on all things caregiving and FamTech. I love that she's chosen those items as her platform. So without further ado, welcome, Adriianna. Thank you so much again. One thing I forgot to mention before we kick it off is please enter your name, your location, your company in the chat, our little FamTech tradition here, just to get a feel for who's on the call. And then if you have questions, please feel free to leverage the chat. And then if we have time, we'll be raising hands later. So welcome, Adriianna. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna just share my screen. Alrighty. Let me know if y'all can see that. Okay, and then we're gonna make it into a slideshow. Great technology. All right. So yeah, thank you all so much for being here and for taking the time. This part is part 2 of our series, and this is how to talk to Congress. So if you're on the last training, it was really deciding if I need a strategy with Congress, if I need to jump into this world of federal policy. And so if yes, then now we need to get to the practical side of things of how do I even approach this? How do I talk to Congress? And also, how do I make lasting policy change? So this is part 2, really for your guide on how to communicate with policymakers. So who am I? As Anna had highlighted, just a little bit more background on me. I have close to a decade of experience working in policy and politics. I started my career in politics with a paid internship in San Diego because, like, who was going to pay a sophomore to, navigate campaigns? So that's kind of how I got thrown into this world. And then I was a legislative director on Capitol Hill in the U.S. House of Representatives. I then lobbied for nonprofits working to support women, families, and children. And in my time working with Capitol Hill in DC, I helped create and fund various multi-million-dollar initiatives at the Department of Health and Human Services. And I'm a self-proclaimed nerd on all things policy, funding, and Congress. So that's a little bit about me. And in this course, what you will learn is the following: the who, what, when, and how of talking to Congress and how to even get a meeting with a member of Congress, what makes Congress listen and why it's important, and then how to craft an impactful message. And then Jamie is going to be taking her experience going from an advocate to a huge champion for maternal mental health and give a case study. So that's going to be really exciting. And Jamie and I worked together when I was a Hill staffer. And then when I became a lobbyist, she was one of my clients. So we go way back. So I'm really excited about that for you all. But before we jump in, let's do a little bit of, icebreakers, I guess, but really it's just a true or false question. So, true or false, if you're on the last training, you might know this. It normally takes over 10 years to pass a piece of legislation in Congress. And people can just you can just talk, you can come off mute. True or false? How do you feel about that?
If I'm guessing, I'd say it's true.
True. Yeah. Any false people? Okay. Great. So yes, it is true. It takes on average when working with clients, we would normally level set and tell them on average it takes around 12 years to get a piece of legislation passed. So that goes from introducing the bill to getting it signed by the president, and then getting it, out the door and implemented. And then another fact I think that will help you ground yourself as we are going to be talking about why it's important to talk to Congress and why we need to have endurance and sustainability and enthusiasm is because each year, each year, every session of Congress, over 10,000 bills get introduced. And when I did the math, only around 3% of them actually pass and become law. So, as I said in the last training, any strategy, anytime working with Congress, it has to be very sustainable and you have to have that endurance because of the fact that there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, there's a lot of ideas, and only around 3% of those 10,000 bills get passed or even signed by the president. So, just keep that in the back of your head as we start talking about how to even engage in this wacky world of Congress and federal policy making. So, part one, let's see. Part one is the who, what, when, and how. So this is really just gonna level you on what we're talking about. So I do a Congress 101 training, and I think it's this is important, and we all probably learned it in US politics and government in high school, but then we forgot it. So I think this is really important just to understand this as we're working with Congress. So the structure of Congress, there are two bodies in Congress and they operate differently and they have different cycles and structures. So the House has 435 members. It's population based. They have 2-year election cycles and they're governed by rules. The Senate, on the other hand, there's 100 members. There's two per state. So Delaware and California, they have the same amount of senators. They are on 6-year election cycles and they're governed by consensus. So these are really important because these bodies, while they work together, they also work separately. And this is going to help you because maybe the way you would approach a senator is not the way you would approach a member of the House of Representatives. So just something to think about. So let's talk about the who. Most likely, when you think about Congress and you think about politics, besides, feeling like it's an episode of The Real Housewives most days, you probably think about, who are the most important people that we should be engaging with and talking to. So if I'm going to go into a meeting with Congress, I need to talk to, the member of Congress. I need to talk to leadership. I need to talk to Speaker Mike Johnson and Leader John Thune. And because I live in San Francisco, I need to talk to my member, Nancy Pelosi. This is just who are my people. These are the people that are going to make the decisions, right? No. The most important people that you want to talk to when you're having a meeting with Congress is the staff. And the reason I would argue this with anyone on the street or in DC is because the staff are the ones who are making the decisions, right? So it's good to have a relationship with your member of Congress. It's good to put a face to a name. Hey, I employ, 30 constituents in your district, and I would love to talk to you and introduce myself. That's totally fine. But if you have a policy ask, I always would advise clients to not feel disheartened or bad if they, get punted to the staff because the staff are the ones who are doing the research, they're doing the legwork, and they're going to be the ones that go to the member of Congress and say, "Hey, I had a really good meeting with XYZ constituent and they're asking you to support this legislation. I think that you should." So That's one of those, I guess, myths that a lot of people think that if you're going to go and advocate with Congress, you need to talk to the highest person in the office. But really, the staff are the ones who make the decisions, and they're 95% of the time the people you're going to meet with, and that is okay. Now, the when, the timing, congressional timing, this is really important to know because it will decide whether, you're doing a meeting in DC or virtual or in the office. So Congress has a 2-year work period. We are currently in the 119th Congress. So Congress has met 119 times. Um, each Congress has 2 sessions. So you have the first year and the second year. We're currently in the second session of the 119th Congress. And the House and Senate are either in session or in recess. So as you're becoming more acquainted with DC, as you're building out your federal policy strategy, you might hear things like, is Congress in recess? Is Congress in session? And so the image I put here is just a calendar that shows when the House is in session, when the Senate is in session, and then when both chambers are in session. If it's white or it's only one chamber, then you can assume they're in recess. And what that just means is most likely Nancy Pelosi, instead of her being in DC, she's going to be in the district with her staff in San Francisco. So that's really what we're referring to. Additionally, as we did with our true and false, we talked about that it takes an average of over 10 years to pass legislation. And we talked about that in each congressional cycle and each congressional 2-year period, there's over 10,000 bills that are introduced. One thing to remember as we're thinking about timing and strategy and planning our meetings is if I introduce a bill in the 119th Congress and it doesn't get passed or nothing happens to it, then all those bills have to be reintroduced. So again, this is why, I'm emphasizing endurance and sustainability because things take a while in Congress. Congress moves very slow. And if I introduce a bill in one Congress, I have to reintroduce it in another Congress. But that's just, again, it's just information for you as you think about your strategy and next steps. So the how. How would I request a meeting? How would I even go about this? So anyone can request a meeting in DC or the district office or virtually. And the key person you want to request the meeting with is the scheduler and or the staff member who handles the policy issue. So I'm a childcare startup and I am based in San Francisco. I am going to want to make a request with a scheduler for a meeting, and I'm going to also want to talk to the staffer who handles childcare. So as you can see, it kind of helps orient you to who in the office you need to talk to. And the easiest way is just an old-fashioned phone call. There are interns who answer the phones all the time, all day long. And if you say, hey, I need the scheduler's email, and can you tell me the staff who handles childcare, they will be more than happy to help you and they will give you that information. So then once you have that, you email your point of contact requesting a meeting, and there you go. So now you know kind of the framework that we're working under, right? We're funneling this. So that is how I would go about requesting a meeting. And this is kind of the structure. And now you know how Congress is structured, right? Now, next thing. What makes Congress listen and why it's important? So you'll notice the structure of this presentation is very well thought out. And I didn't put this last, I put this in the middle because again, as you're crafting your message, and going through 12 years of advocating for a bill and trying to get it across the finish line, I'm not saying good things don't happen in those 12 years, but just that's the average. You're gonna have to come back to this. You're gonna have to come back to your why, and also you're gonna have to come back to, okay, how do I get this guy or gal to listen to me, right? And make an impact. So I like to do things in threes. So I call these the 3 C's, and this is really what Congress cares about. So, what Congress really cares about when you're trying to talk to them and make them, do what you would like them to do. First, constituents. So that's you and I. They care about constituents. We're the ones who vote. We're the ones who, put them in office. We're the ones who they're supposed to be working for in office. So, right, we're kind of important. Colleagues, so what is this person doing? Or what is my colleague on the other side of the aisle doing? What is leadership saying about this, right? So Congress, they care about what their colleagues are thinking and what they're doing in order to make decisions on whether they're going to support legislation or a cause. And then, you know, neutral here, but cash. It is the society, it is the world we live in. And as we know, there is people who donate to campaigns and people who support elected officials. I am not saying whether it is right or wrong, but it is the world we navigate in. So that always comes to play. But if you argued with me, I would say constituents are the most important because I have seen people who have $0 to their name to advocate with Congress make huge differences. So constituents can really make an impact, and that's why it's really important for us to think about our message, which we're getting to. And then why it's important, you might recognize this slide from the last training, but all policy issues are personal. So transportation, childcare, healthcare, taxes, Congress oversees a lot of money, a lot of your taxpayer dollars, and they're tasked with how that's allocated and how that's put to use. We'll talk about that in the third training of what that all means. And members of Congress are elected by you. So you have every right to call them up and say, hey, I want to talk to you about awesome work I'm doing in the district or a problem I'm having. They are there to serve you as their constituents. And another thing, as just why it's important, if you don't ask to be at the table, you'll be upset when policy changes for the worse. And you'll be happy when it changes for the best, but you have to have a seat at the table either way. So that's just a really important reminder as we go into this world of policy, politics, and people. And then part 3 is the meat and potatoes, how to craft your message and how to make an impact. And this is what I would tell advocates who have 0 years of experience and advocates who have 20 plus years of experience talking to Congress, right? So this is a universal message. This is something that people at all different points of their advocacy or interactions with the federal government can use. And it's something I think that is really important to remember as you are exploring this world. But in perfect fashion, I have my college football poster board with various people and pictures, and we're gonna see what these people all have in common. This should just be like a game. I guess I should just make a game that people play this. So we have, if you don't know who some of these people are, totally fine. I will tell you. So we have Paris Hilton, Jelly Roll, he's a country singer, James Madison, and Ivanka Trump. So does anyone know what they all have in common?
They're all
And if
parents.
not, it's okay. It's a really
Elizabeth, do you have a suggestion?
I was good hair.
Good hair.
I got nothing. I got nothing. And that's
Hans,
been gracious with Jelly Roll. So yeah.
yeah.
Hans, what were you going to say?
They're all parents or have been parents,
Well,
perhaps.
they've all testified in front of Congress or participated in something. I know Paris Hilton had a whole thing against like teenage centers and stuff like that.
Yes, very close. They all have met with and advocated with Congress in order to make lasting policy change. So this goes all the way back to James Madison. Okay, so this is really, I think with all of them, I can more or less tell you what they did. But this is really like, you know, even these individuals, even from the beginning of our nation's history, we had people advocating, talking to Congress, trying to influence it, and they were successful at it. So I think that's something to just keep in the back of your mind as we, you know, continue on this college football Pictionary kind of game. So that's something just to think through. So what makes a good message? Here we go. My rule of threes. It's personal. So a good message is personal. It includes your story and your why, right? It's not just, you know, just a piece of paper you're reading, right? You're able to connect and put a personal touch, or someone who's with you can share something personal about why the cause is important to them. It's crafted. So this really means when you're talking, you know who your audience is, right? And I think this, you know, they tell you this all the time, no matter what you're doing, is like, know your audience, you know your buyer, know your customer, right? Know your audience. And it's clear. So personal, crafted, and clear. And I'm going to say this word a lot, but ask is really important because you're going to probably say it in meetings like 3 to 5 times because staffers forget. They're really busy. There's a lot going on. So you want to make sure that when you go in, you're like, I need you to do X, Y, Z, please. And you're going to have to say it a lot of times so people know, okay, I just met with this company and they're asking my boss to co-sponsor this legislation, right? I can't tell you as a staffer how many meetings I had where I got to the end of the meeting and I'm like, so what are you asking me to do? Because through the meeting, I was just getting talked at, and no one really ever said, like, hey, Adriana, we want your boss to do this, and can she co-sponsor this? They just talked at me, right? So personal, crafted, and clear. And just again, keep that word in your mind. But I think what I always encourage people to do as well, which you are all awesome, so you're already going to do this, but is to do your homework, right? The approach you might take with one member of Congress is never going to be the approach you take with another member, right? So that is something to really remember. If I'm talking to a member of Congress who is from a very conservative district in Louisiana, I'm not going to start the conversation by saying, hi, we're here for you to support H.R. 1234, which increases taxation on working families in order to provide universal child care in the United States. The moment I said increase taxes on working families, that office just shut off their ears and are like, I am not supporting this piece of legislation, right? But if I say, hi, we're here to ask you to support HR 1234 in order to support working families in Louisiana who are having issues accessing childcare. Did you know that 1 in 5 children in Louisiana don't have access to safe, reliable childcare? And this causes the economy of Louisiana close to, I don't know, I'm making this up, $5 million each year in lost economic revenue. So we're working in a coalition to make childcare more accessible and affordable for everyday families and constituents in your district, right? They might not support HR 1234, but because you showed them that in their district there's a childcare issue and rural families don't have access to safe, reliable childcare, they might say, hey, Adriana, my boss can't support this, but we want to work with you on other issues or other policy initiatives. Maybe there's something we can do together. So as you saw there, the message completely changed based off of my homework and what I was doing and who my audience was. So we can do a few more examples, but I think that childcare one is the most, top of mind. And then if anything else, and you need to remember like a nice acronym, which I'm usually horrible at acronyms, but this one just came to me, is I call it the SING method. So this is just a method that you can use when you go in to talk to lawmakers to make you feel calm and remember all the things you need to hit. And I can tell you as a baby lobbyist, I did this because I knew how to work with Congress, but I didn't know how to talk to Congress. So this was really important to keep me on task. And so as you can see, the word of the day is to ask, and this is going to be reiterated throughout your message. So state your reason for being there and who you are and your story, right? So that's the personal component. Information to back up your ask. So maybe there's something about your work or what you're doing that shows a direct connection to the member's district or their state. Narrate and navigate through current political realities. So this is not meaning like, say, I know you're up for reelection and you're in a hard reelection. No. But, for example, if you're asking for funding and funding is really tight or there's a lot of arguments in Congress about funding, you can always say, I know funding is really tight right now, and there's a lot of pressure on you to support different funding initiatives, right? So you're acknowledging and you're navigating some of those pushbacks you might get. So put them out in front, right? And then gratitude and wrap up. This is why we need you to support, include the ask again. So by this point, you've already said the ask 3 times. Include the ask again, and then just wrap up. And we'll be following up with you with information. And thank you so much for your time. And please let me know if you have any questions. So that's the SING method. It's something that I think can help you as you're, because it can be really intimidating talking to Congress and members of Congress. But this will get you to where you need to go. And then finally, meeting etiquette. Like I said, you are all professionals and you know how to act in a meeting, but there's just some quirks of talking to staffers or members of Congress that you just might want to remember. So always introduce yourself and your organization, active listening, and do not be on your phone. Be open to receiving feedback. So not every office is going to be like, you know what? This is the best idea I've ever heard. They might be like, well, what about this? Or why didn't you do this? Or I think I'm concerned about this. So be open to feedback, right? Oh, I never thought of that. Or, oh, we can, we'll talk to our company or our lobbyist about that, right? Um, if you don't know the answer, say you'll follow up. That's just basic etiquette. Don't try to pull an answer or say something that you're not 100% sure on. It's better just to say, you know what, that's a really good question. I am not 100% sure, but I will follow up with you after this meeting, or I'm going to talk to our team and we'll get back to you. So I think that's always appreciated by staff members and members of Congress. And then express gratitude, even if the staffer is rude. That's really hard to do, but like I said, you're not going to walk into meetings where it's like 100% that they're going to love the idea. And the staff members are overworked and underpaid and they're doing a million meetings a day. That doesn't mean that they have a right to treat you rudely, but you just might catch them at a bad time. So just, always express gratitude, thank you for your time, even if they're rude. And then, like, as we talked about, follow up with the office after the meeting, and just, make sure that if you say you're going to follow up, that you do follow up. And yeah, so with that, I think that Jamie is in the room, and I'm so excited for you all to see this case study because Jamie is, she is a champion of this. So I am going to turn it over to Jamie, who is a good friend and colleague, and she worked with me when I was a baby lobbyist and a baby health staffer. And she is the founder of the Maternal Mental Health Leadership Alliance. She's a former state representative, and she's also running for Congress. So, Jamie, I will let you take it away. And so excited to be doing this with you.
Adri, it's so great to see you. And Anna, it's always great to see you. I can't believe how our lives keep crossing paths. It's pretty amazing. Really excited to see this group that's come together. And I'll say that I did know Adriianna when she was a baby lobbyist. And I also met Anna when she was a baby femtech mama.
That's right. I mean, we're talking 10 years ago, Jamie. That's so crazy.
It is.
And your work is always so inspiring and super grateful that you're continuing. Like you're not giving up.
No, no, we as women don't have the option, so we need to keep going, and that's what this group here is all about. And I just incredibly thankful to and I see Sophia Yen, who I think should also be a comedian, is on this call. She always brings the humor as well, because that's another thing we know. You've got to work hard to get things done, and usually issues around family and women's health aren't well received from the general man public in DC, where it continues to be the decisions are being made by the white men in the room where it happens. And here we are, because usually women are in the spaces because of their own lived experience, or they know that there's a better way to do it, because we are just born multitaskers and figure out how to get things done. So I appreciate the case study, and we'll go to the next. Yes.
Oh, wait. I just want to make sure we give you due credit. Well, I heard the
Thank you.
titles, but like, could we do just a little intro? Because I'm just
Oh,
so
sure.
fascinated
Thank
always,
you.
every time I hear your story.
Thank you very much. So my name is Jamie Zalloway Belsito, and first and foremost, I'm a mom of two. I really lived my Carrie Bradshaw life in Brooklyn and in DC, and ended up meeting my husband when I was crossing the street in Washington, DC. And if anyone knows where Florida Avenue is, I had been running to go across Florida Avenue to go get a bite to eat, and the light turned red, and a little Volkswagen drove out in front of me. I said, "Geez, not going to make it. And I turned my head to the right, and there was the kid I had the biggest crush on when I was 15 years old, crossing the street toward me. He was in DC for 24 hours and ended up staying 2 weeks, and now we're married. It will be 20 years in June with two children, which was not on my to-do list. I had made a pact with God the night before after breaking up with another semi hardly worthy of my time, and vowed to live with cats. And the next day I ran into my husband. So that kind of bucked what I thought my life was going to be. And then, oh, get out, Sophie, I love it. Then I didn't think I was ever going to have children. And then I did. And I have two amazingly beautiful daughters. And during the time of that phase of my life, I had had a miscarriage at 3 months and was really taken aback by that. You spend all those years trying not to get pregnant, and then when I finally did get pregnant, things didn't work. And I was like, wait, what is this? And I just felt like that my body had failed me. And we'd never talk about miscarriage openly. I think more and more we do. And then when I did get pregnant again, I spent the entire time with me and my geriatric uterus, because I was 35 or 36 then, being told that I was subject to potential. I see Dave Ezra here from Bobby Health, another friend, just being told, oh, you're high risk, you're high risk, you're high risk. And what that did was really disconnect me from my pregnancy. And subsequently, I had this really debilitating anxiety and OCD with my child. She was perfect. And once I gave birth to her, I literally thought to myself, you can exhale. She's been born. She's perfect. Now you can close your eyes and never wake up again. And that was just not who I was. And that happened to me again with my second child. I was hanging in there, and then ended up really just falling apart. I was home by myself with a toddler and a newborn, having another horrible emergency cesarean situation. And my husband was working full time and by myself. And I just said, we can't do this. If I'm having these challenges finding support, and I'm a heterosexual, white presenting woman living in the suburbs of Boston, with a husband who has a full-time job, and we have private health insurance, what does that mean for everyone else? If I'm afraid to look for help because I'm afraid the police are going to come take my kids, or that my husband's going to leave me, I'm going to think that there's a lot of other people out there that might find themselves in a dire situation. And we do know that maternal mortality is a big issue here in this country. We see that suicide and substance use overdose is the leading cause. We know that that's predominantly white women. We don't see that in our brown and black communities, but I will say this. I spoke to Dr. Arlene Geronimus about this, who wrote the book Weathering, talking about why do black women presumably age faster physically, due to exposed and systemic racism. And the secondary cause of maternal mortality we've seen has been maternal mental health disorders. I think if you're growing up in a country that is constantly bombarding you with racism and questioning your choices, how can you not have PTSD or that trauma? And so I really do think that this is related to how we don't listen to women. We don't want them to have bodily autonomy. We want them to pay more in their health care. And then on top of it, if you are not Caucasian, you are treated differently. And we know this. So I had enough. And I had been in the immigration space for about 15 years and kind of grew up on Capitol Hill, so to speak, with my chops there, and a time and a place when people actually worked together and didn't try to take health insurance away from Americans. But at that time, the only issue that really had ever been discussed on the Hill was breast cancer and abortion care. And so bringing a subject matter like maternal mental health to educate folks about what that was truly was a big order to be tasked with. But those of me or who know me, and those of you who are from New England, my response was, "Well, the Red Sox beat the Yankees, so let's do this." And so from there, this is what we did.
Thank you. That is awesome. Appreciate you taking the time to do that and excited to hear about the case study.
Thank you very much. So how do you turn like $0 and literal like zero, nobody knew what you were talking about issue into $24 million? As I said, spoiler alert, it is not by playing the lottery. It is by straight up advocating, organizing and advocating. Well, great. So what was the problem here? The problem was that maternal mental health and substance use disorders, and continue to be then and now, are the most common complication of pregnancy and postpartum, yet care was treated optional and access was incredibly limited. Families faced long wait lines. There's never going to be enough mental health clinicians, nonetheless, perinatal mental health clinicians. Fragmented systems, we see it. We see it. All of a sudden, you're getting you're in the hospital, maybe something goes on, either a planned operation or something that wasn't planned, and you've got anesthesiology seems to be kind of the thing, where the anesthesiologist isn't part of the health system, and so now you're getting billed by this person, and although your insurance is covering you here, it's a fragmented system, and really we're doing a little bit better now with things like 988 for crisis or crisis teams that are in communities or community behavioral health centers, but we still see that moms are very averse to saying that they need help. And so that was the problem there. What did we do? We went to Congress. We found someone in Congress to work with us. Hot tip, find the moms, find the nanas, find the dads. They know what's going on. And they are very open to working on family issues because they definitely see where the gaps are and they see where the services are needed. So we had this very nice, simple bill. It basically said 1 in 9, although the figure has changed, 1 in 9 at that time of parents suffer from mental health disorders that are temporary and treatable. And it does not mean that you are a bad parent. And we went and asked for a pilot program for $5 million. And that was in 2015. And we had bipartisan, the key that Adriianna was talking about, bipartisan and people in the House and the Senate to file bills. This really keeps the engines running. The House is where you always want to start, and the Senate is where you want to end in regards to getting something introduced. But doing that research, again, there's a digital health caucus right now. There are mental health caucuses. We've got the Mom Caucus, the Dad Caucus, the Black Women's Health Caucus, the Black Maternal Health Caucus. We've got Children's Caucus, you name it. And a lot of these health issues are overlapping because we know that even the folks that are working in the childcare space, I don't think maybe there is a childcare caucus, Adriianna, I don't know off the top of my head. But just look for who makes sense. And if it is your own congressional representative, all the better. So we took this to Congress, and the other big part at that time was that a comprehensive mental health bill was moving through Congress. And we showed up and said, how about maternal mental health? And literally people said, what? What is this? And we just did a huge education push, and we made really simple bulleted points, 1-page leave behind saying, here's the issue, here's how we solve this, and always money talks and what that financial component of, and it was about $15 billion impact in lost wages and family impact in society.
And Jamie, we talked about that last training, how sometimes lobbying is not, or advocating as well as not offensive or defensive. Sometimes it's just educational, just to get your voice heard. And that's what you did. And it worked.
It did. It really did. It was just say, okay, you don't know what this is. Here's what it is. 1 in 5. It can present in these ways. It was really interesting. You had staffers go, oh, wait, that's like what's happening to my best friend right now. Or, yeah, totally. Absolutely. It was my wife. Or, oh, that's what that was? That was like 20 years ago. I didn't know it had a name. That was me. So having those conversations can really make a difference. And we'll go to the next slide. So the appropriations, as my dear friend, Representative Jim McGovern of Worcester said to me, Jamie, that's really great you got that bill passed. But unless it has dollars attached to it, it doesn't mean anything. It's just a paper hanger. And I said, oh, time to go back to Capitol Hill, friends. Time to get the money. And I mind you, we're making this up on the go. Like we had 91 Hill visits. I made this up from my red kitchen table with, as I joke, I said one child on the boob and one on my knee, and we just came together as moms and did this fly in. And I was like, oh, we need to get money. Well, then I said, ladies, leave your high heels at home this time. Put the sneakers on and let's go back to Capitol Hill. And we took a look. I'm sure Adriianna went through this. We took a look at who has the purse strings. What states are they from? Who has the purse strings? And again, always, who are your allies? Who are your natural allies? If you're in tech, is there a particular tech belt that maybe a legislator is from and you're looking at them? Again, is it something regional? Do you know that your product or what you're working on is being rolled out in a specific region? Are any of those legislators from there? I always call it like Tetris of the brain. You're trying to like slot and fit things in as best as you can so there's a connection point. And what we did was go back to Congress, and the language that we had written, the legislative language said $5 million allocated. And we did the full court press in the offices to inform and educate, to say it costs more to have women not be able to find help than it does for this pilot program. And we know that this is a temporary and treatable mental health challenge. No other mental health challenge is. And your state, guess what? Your state could get this money and it could really help address the problems in your state. And that was it. It was making it about people and making about solutions. And so we saw that first tranche of funding go out. And although it be only 7 states, the second time around, we're in the second round, it's up to 13 recipients right now. When you're crafting your message, and I'm going to actually put something in the chat here. When you're crafting your message, it's one of these things where, okay, if you were in the elevator with, I don't know, insert here. I'm trying to think who I'd want to be in an elevator with. There's not many people I want to be in an elevator. I'd rather just sleep in my own bed by myself. But if you are in the elevator with the I don't want to say the president, but let's pretend that our president that we have someone coherent in office, and you were able to tell them what you needed. You really want to have that 30-second chat down, right? You really want to be able to say, here's the issue, here's what we need, and here's why we need it. I just dropped into the chat our advocacy toolkit. You can use it for any issue, and it gives you an idea. But we always use the who, what, why, how, and when model. Who are you? What is the issue? Why are you looking to have some policy change or some money sent your way to address this issue? How is it going to be done? Not by taxes, as Adriianna said, never by taxes, right? You're looking to solve a problem. And then state clearly what that need is. Why I'm looking at Dana, like Dana, why let me ask you, can I ask you your what? Do you know what your what is? Or any of these? Do you have any of these down that you know why you'd be looking to advocate for something?
Yeah, I that's a good question. I'm trying to think what I would advocate for just because I have I've brought this up before and it was a little bit of a controversial take, but I would say, would it help to say what I do first so it gives you
Sure.
context? Okay.
Yep.
So very quickly, I'm a founder of a software company that aggregates multiple databases for childcare government agencies, CCR&Rs. Basically, we can't make policy decisions unless we have an accurate view of where childcare programs are and what they cost. So when we hear things like universal childcare, that's really a data question. Is it a 2x problem or a 10x problem? So in terms of what I would say, like, it is crazy that we expect families, um, to look for childcare in a way that involves calling neighbors or walking down the street. Why is this entire early education industry not kept up from a policy perspective, a technology perspective, in a way that we've expected every other one, like a real estate or even the way we make a restaurant reservation? I would say we really don't have an accurate view of what the childcare landscape looks like and how are we expected to improve upon it if we can't answer those questions.
Well, it sounds like I need to hang out with you because this is a universal
I live
issue.
in
But
Brooklyn too, by the way.
oh, you're in the BK. I
Yeah,
love
I'm in
it.
Carroll Gardens.
Wonderful. I have someone there I'd actually like to introduce you to. Paige Bellenbaum, who ran the Motherhood Center. You should absolutely meet her.
Awesome.
She's over in Carroll Gardens. And my husband was at Brooklyn Law. So okay, so but Dana, she's talking about data. Ding! I'm a congressional aide. I am getting all sorts of my hair's blowing back. I want to hear about the data. This is really where we want to know, like, okay, what's the issue? And you're giving me data. I'm pulling that seat up a little more, right? I really want to hear, and Adriana knows this too. These folks are listening from like the farmers to childcare to senior issues to, the Iran debate, like there every issue you could think of under the sun. And that's why there are specific portfolios that each congressional aide has. So this is great. Knowing just the little nuggets, you want to have those breadcrumbs to keep people engaged in. And what you're talking about right now is one of the biggest issues that Congress has still not been able to solve. But it sounds to me like you're ready, willing, and able to do that. And so just following a format like this, the who, what, why, and
Yeah.
how and
I
when.
would be more succinct if I had some practice time.
Absolutely. And so that thank you for letting me just pull you
Of
off
course.
mute there. But it starts to get you thinking, and that's what that toolkit can do. And again, stating clearly what the intended action is really, really, really important, right? That's when you're going and asking, and sometimes there's programs already in place that maybe you're looking to like elevate. And this is something Adriana and I have talked about too. Like we have these telepsychiatry access grants, and they're great, and they're on the phone. And there are some of us on this call that remember this is not just like on Stranger Things in the 80s, like we had dial phones, right? You picked it up like it was on the wall and you picked and it went and you put in the dial and the dial went click, 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 click in the 90s. Right? We actually had a regular ring and not putting it as a ring selection on my phone. But we could do better, right? We can do something online. We can have access digitally. We can connect with people in a different way. And we even saw the FDA authorize digital health tools. There's a whole movement of access, what insurance is covering for access. And there's other modalities for us to 21st centurize our issues and being able to deliver them at large scale or specific scale, depending on what you're doing. So it really is an opportunity to say, hey, this is what I do. Here's what the issue is, and here's how we can fix it. And then we'll go to the next slide. Okay. So no word of a lie, even during COVID, we were able to show the value add by utilization. By having different states obtain funding, we were able to secure $86.5 million in federal funding. Pretty incredible. It's working. It's saving lives. It's keeping moms together with their baby. It is keeping moms and babies healthy because we know that if moms and babies aren't healthy together, the impact on the child is seen well into their formative years, and that can culminate in behavioral health issues, challenges with education. And the other thing, too, with the programs that we put together, they don't require insurance. And I love this. I love this. Even a lactation consultant or a midwife can call and say, "Hey, Jamie's having some challenges. There's some community-based supports that we could get her." And the 1-833 TLC Mama line, 1-833 TLC Mama line that is connected to the domestic violence and the 988 line are available through phone and text 24/7. And they have been highly utilized. And again, do not require insurance and can connect anyone, nanas, dads, the birthing parent, what have you, to get support. And so we're waiting with bated breath for hopefully another $22 million to expand these programs and expand them into Indigenous communities. And we also did this for our military families as well. So it was just a lot of coordination and a lot of education and a lot of not giving up hope, because sometimes it can take, how many years, Adriianna? How long can these take to
On
get
average,
results?
12 years. So, yeah, it can take a long time, but yeah, so I appreciate that, Jamie. Thank you for putting a microscope on, like we were saying before you jumped on, that you don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to have, a million lobbyists on your case. Like you can make a difference and it really matters. And next training, we're actually going to get into appropriations, and we're going to talk about that as a way to build advocacy and not, not needing to start, from the ground up. You can jump in and learn about appropriations and federal funding. So I know we're coming up on time, but just some final takeaways, and I want to make sure we can answer some questions, is just speaking to Congress can be intimidating, but you can do it. Anyone can request with their member of Congress a meeting, and that's accessible to you. Knowing your ask and repeating it many times will help the staff remember. There are three things Congress cares about: cash, colleagues, and constituents. I would say constituents are the most important. Always be respectful in meetings, even if the staffer is rude. And following up and maintaining contact with staffers helps make a long-term relationship. So that is it. That's my contact info. Jamie, if you want to drop your contact info as well in the chat, just in case folks want to follow up with you on all the amazing work you're doing, and I will turn it back over to Anna.
I just want to say thank you both. This has been so informative. I'm learning something every time. Thank you, Jamie, for sharing out that example. I think that's going to be very helpful for many. And thank you, Adriana, for like lifting the veil on all of this. And I think these sessions are so important. They give us permission to kind of show up like everyone else, right? Like we have to advance this together in a meaningful way. And so really appreciate you all coming to the call today and looking forward to next week's session. All right. Well, thank you again and wishing you a good rest of your week. And Jamie, we're cheering you on, hoping you all the best, and thank you for continuing the work.
Thank you. We're doing this together. Really appreciate everyone's
Absolutely.
time.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.
Bye.